I bought the 36 most sold Quest games, and I'm going to rank them from best to worst. From S tier being the best to D tier being the worst. And at the end of the video, I'm going to give one game the crown spot, and I'm going to give one game the lowest trash spot. I generally only play PC VR titles, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to jump into the Quest platform and see what's out there. Let's get started with the least most popular. Battle Tallent is a fighting game based on various dungeon style levels. You have an adventure mode, a sandbox mode, a mixed reality, and a challenge mode. I found the game to be a bit clunky. The AI moved quite erratically, and they weren't very clever. The unpolished nature of the game made it difficult to fully enjoy the experience, and I can't imagine ever wanting to return to it. I'm going to have to put this one into D tier. Judging by the reviews online, I think I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for this one. Maybe I'll return to it at some point to reevaluate. Next up, Cave Digger is a mining simulator. You get put in this small mining box and you have to break the rocks to get gems, which you then put in the middle, which gives you currency. You can then use that currency to buy gadgets. You then get earnings and can slowly begin to upgrade your equipment. I bought this X-ray scanner and you can see gems through the rocks. It just saves some time having to smash all the rocks. My next upgrade was this tool that breaks the rock without having to flip your hand around with a pickaxe. There are a range of challenges you can do around the map when you're exploring. It reminds me of that really old classic flash mining game. It's satisfying and relaxing. It's quite repetitive. I couldn't imagine wanting to return to this game ever again. It's an enjoyable concept with a sequel that's already outperforming it. I'm gonna have to give Cave Digger a C tier. Gorn is an early VR hack and slash game. It's known for being extremely polished and having gruesome dismemberment. The default movement uses this weird system where you hold the button down and swing your hands. Once you change to the joystick movement, it's much better. Bashing enemies is quite addicting and it's really polished. My favorite weapons were the swords. The game has 3 main levels and each level has a sub-level which gives you different types of enemies. It takes about 3 to 4 hours to beat the final boss, and once you do that, there's not much reason to return to the sandbox or campaign mode. The replay value really diminishes. That said, I just absolutely loved the polish, and for that reason, I'm putting it in A tier. Next up, we have Zero Calibre. It's got quite an impressive campaign with these really cool Call of Duty-esque set pieces. I had quite a lot of fun with this one. I think the team really outdid themselves. The story was quite interesting. It's told through these cutscenes. There's some global religious war and something to do with water. There's a few game modes like zombies, a wave-based shooter, as well as the multiplayer mode. It's enough to keep you busy for a while. I'm gonna put it in B tier. It's great having that Call of Duty experience on the Quest platform. Next up, we have Titan's Clinic. It's a dentist simulator game where you have various tools to fix people's teeth. You get to invite a client to your clinic. You then get a picture of what they want and a range of tools to get their teeth to look that way. You get more tools as you continue to progress through the levels. It's quite a bit of fun using all the tools to get people's teeth to look a certain way. And hopefully by the end of it, you'll end up with a happy client. I have to say, while the game's extremely polished, it's also extremely repetitive. I'm gonna have to put it in C tier, just because of how quickly I lost interest in it. Next up, we have Richie's Plank Experience, which is just an absolute classic VR game. You set up a plank in the real world and then match it to the in-game world. You then have to walk along the plank, and for the first few times you do it, it feels extremely realistic. The first time you fall off, it's nightmare-inducing. I've showed many people this game and they are quite horrified. There are other game modes like the Hero Academy. They even threw in an optional rock level, but the skyscraper one's my favourite, and this weird Santa sled mode. I think this game's worth checking out, especially just to show newcomers to VR what VR can offer. That said, I don't really think you would return to it much, and I'm gonna put it in the C tier. Then we have Five Nights at Freddy's. You're a nighttime security guard at a pizza joint. The main goal is to survive 5 nights from midnight to 6 AM while managing limited resources. You watch and flick between cameras, anticipating the monsters as they come closer. You have limited electricity, which gets used when you shut doors, use cameras, and turn the lights on. As you progress through the game, the enemies get harder and more unpredictable. There's also a bunch of minigames you can play which revolve around a similar concept. The universe is incredibly rich and it just makes you want to watch YouTube videos and learn more about the world. It's quite scary when you get a jump scare just because of how dark it is and all the sound. That said, it's just not my cup of tea and I found it a bit boring. Once the scare factor went away, I didn't see much point in playing it, and I'm gonna put it in C tier. Next up, we have Skybox VR Player. I'm not sure why this was on the most downloaded games list, but it was there, so I'm going to treat it as such. It's essentially a VLC media player for your Quest. It allows you to view photos and videos. It even comes with a PC app that's super easy to set up. You can then transfer files directly to your Quest. It's packed with a lot of different areas, complete with full reflections and different areas to view your media files. The app is super polished and it works perfectly. It was pretty cool watching TV shows on it, and it's a great app for the intended purpose. That said, I really just don't have a use for it. If I wanted to watch a movie, I would just use Steam VR or Oculus Link. It's highly personal, but I'm gonna put it in C tier, as I just don't have a use for it. Marvel's Iron Man initially gets you started flying around just like Iron Man would in the movies. The set pieces look amazing, and initially it seemed absolutely action-packed. However, after playing for a little while, it felt extremely soulless and clunky. The mechanics just don't do it for me. There's this huge portion of the game where you're just standing there listening to characters talk about things you just don't care about. It's often move here and then it teleports you somewhere and then you have to move somewhere else and listen to someone for 10 minutes. The cutscenes were so boring, I just wanted to skip past all of them. It also felt like lots of times during the game, I could only play the way the developers wanted me to play. I couldn't just go over there and do it, I had to do it in the specific way they developed the game for. There's something here, but they just failed to deliver it. It's 10% cool action and 90% boring talking with nothing happening. I'm gonna have to put this one in D tier. Raccoon Lagoon was a really cool and polished game. You jump into this island and get tasked with collecting various items which unlock more areas or buildings. For example, you collect wood to get a pickaxe to help the NPCs and then unlock new areas. And then you essentially just keep doing the same thing. One thing that really shined was the 3D audio. It just sounds so crisp and beautiful, and they just nailed the voice acting. There's also a lot of options to just change how you look. The fishing mode is one of the most relaxing I've played in VR. However, it does get a bit repetitive when you realize you're just collecting things to collect more things to collect more things. That said, I did find it very relaxing, and I'm gonna have to put it in B tier. Then we had Warplanes Aircorp. It's a military aviation simulation game. You have the choice between a jet or a helicopter, and you can upgrade both of them while completing various types of missions. For me, I had a lot more fun in the planes than the helicopters. You have to switch between the different types of weapons to take out different types of enemies. However, the gameplay is clunky and it is a massive battle with the controls. Turning around in the jet or just wanting to land the helicopter just took so long. Maybe this is part of the aviation simulator aspect of the game, but sometimes I wish there was just a quick way to snap somewhere. It was a bit difficult just getting those aircrafts to do what you want. That said, just the experience of flying around in VR is incredible. Turning around and looking around you just feels so real.
Missile alert. Flares launched. Anti-tank missile online. Warning.
And I'm gonna put it in C tier. Walkabout mini golf was highly polished and actually a lot of fun. You have a range of mini golf courses to complete. Once you hit the ball, you can move there yourself or just teleport to a good position. There's a range of golf courses you can choose from as well as some mini games you can play. The mechanics seemed to work really well and the physics felt quite smooth. I enjoyed it and it's a high quality game. The graphic style is really cool and the multiplayer makes it very addicting. I love this view of the whole golf course and I'm gonna put this one in A tier. I could see myself playing this a lot in the future. Battle Glide is an open world game where you shoot webs around and kill enemies with guns. On the map, there are areas you can go to and complete various missions. The clunk is definitely real in this one, and every aspect of it is an early access game. There are lots of options for upgrades, and it is a lot of dumb fun. It reminds me of the Boneworks Spider-Man mod, just flying around killing enemies in a big city. That said, due to the clunk, I'm just gonna have to put this one in B tier. But it is a lot of fun, and I'd still recommend checking it out. 11 Table Tennis is just hands down an amazing game. They absolutely nailed the physics of playing table tennis. I could spend hours just playing it and hearing that super satisfying sound when you hit the ball. The AR mode is really cool, and I love they give you the ability to change the height of your table at any time you want. There's also a whole range of mini games you can play to keep you busy, but it really shines when you're playing multiplayer or just a game against the AI. The only issue is the tracking rate with the controllers sometimes just can't keep up with you. but regardless, it's a must-have game for me, and it's going in the S tier. Next, I was keen for another shooter with Contractors Showdown. Immediately, I jumped into the Zombies mode, which is just a classic wave-based simulator. As the rounds go on, you can upgrade your equipment more. I then jumped into the multiplayer mode, which I have to say is where the real fun is. The mechanics felt smooth and it was quite addictive. With single player offerings, a zombie mode and multiplayer, it's got everything you would need. You can just get lost playing this game, and I'm gonna put it in B tier. Arizona Sunshine 2 is a zombie shooter that I'd heard a lot about but never played. It starts in the desert and it gives you a quick tutorial of how to shoot and use the weapons. You then make your way to try and get an evacuation out of the zombie apocalypse. You then just get roped further and further into the story.
Buddies are looking for Freddy #1, Patient Zero. And wait. If I find Patient Zero first, then they'll find me.
I have to say, I was just absolutely blown away by this game. It's the closest to a Half-Life Alyx experience I've found on the Quest. The sound design, campaign freedom, and general polished gameplay make this an absolute must-buy. The story was intriguing and interesting, and I kept wanting to find out what would happen next. This game just has to go in S tier. Go and buy it now. It's a must-buy, and I'm gonna put it in A tier. Thrill of the Fight is another game that just aims to mimic the boxing experience. There are practice modes, but essentially you just fight harder and harder enemies. People say it's more realistic than the Creed game, but I think I prefer Creed in every single way. The mixed reality was cool, but it was just so repetitive, and I'm gonna throw it in D tier. Moto X just aims to capture the experience of those old PS2 games where you would drive around in a motorbike and do tricks, or even just some racing. I jumped in and skipped through the controls. You can zap and fly around really quickly. There's a few different game modes and a huge range of maps to play on. I have to say I had shocking performance in this, and I found it quite grating. It was just very laggy and stuttery, and I experienced a few crashes. I'm gonna have to put it in E tier just because of the performance issues. I couldn't imagine ever wanting to return to this either. There's something about driving just by moving your hands in VR that I just really don't like. Shave and Stuff is a similar game to Titan's Clinic. You get given a picture of someone's hair and then you have to cut it to match it. As you progress through the levels, the haircuts get harder and you get some more tools with more options for haircuts that need to be cut. There's a high level of polish and it is quite relaxing and fun just cutting people's hair into the photo they gave you. It's amusing but very, very repetitive. I'm gonna have to put it in C tier. It's just too repetitive and it's not my style of game. Frenzy VR is a chaotic VR game where you can smash everything in the world and go around killing enemies with all the weapons they give you. I started on the climbing level and was immediately off to a rough start. It was just a nightmare trying to climb and hang on to things. It just didn't work. It was super clunky. As I went through the levels, I got a better concept of what the game is. Everything is essentially destructible. You just go around killing people. There is some fun in there, but I just found it so hard and a massive battle with the controls and the world to play. There's also a range of smaller game modes to play, like this Squid Game style one. There's a full campaign, lots of different game modes, and it can get very chaotic. I just found the clunk to it almost unbearable. It's just so incredibly clunky. While the weapons are fun, the clunk is just so frustrating. Sometimes even walking 10 meters in a room was just a nightmare-inducing experience. And I'm gonna have to put it in C tier. Golf Plus gives you a range of golf courses to make your way through. It's a ton of fun and it reminds me a lot of Wii Golf. I was actually shockingly surprised at just how polished it was. It's very satisfying when you hit the ball and I could get lost playing it for hours. The swinging feels so satisfying and natural. They also give you a range of practice game modes. I'm gonna put it in B tier. Tactical Assault VR gives you a range of game modes where you can play with other people or just play killing other people. The sheer amount of weapon customization there is just incredible. I found those single player mission-oriented objectives a bit frustrating to play, and I think where it really shined was in the multiplayer.
Yeah, shoot him.
The game really shines when you're playing with other people.
No, the I shouldn't. No, the I shouldn't. I suck at sniping.
AKs are better.
AKs are better. AKs are for real.
It felt like one of the best multiplayer shooting experiences the Quest has to offer. Despite some rough edges, it's a solid shooter game. I'm gonna put this one in S tier. I could see myself returning this one to play a lot more.
Dumbass! Maybe get a better shot with this. Maybe shouldn't use your shield, dumbass! I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said that.
So Virtual Desktop is showing up in the games in the most downloaded. I'm not sure why, but it's there, so I'm going to include it in my list. You download the desktop app on your computer, and then you can link it to your Quest. You can then access your files and play with Steam VR. There's a range of environments to watch your media in, and you also have a whole bunch of settings to change the way your PC streams content. This was a must-buy app just 4 years ago. It used to be basically the only way to access your PC VR titles from your Quest. But times have changed, and in my personal opinion, Steam Link and the Oculus Link platforms just offer a better overall experience. The app at the moment just feels obsolete. It gives me more headaches, lag, and clunk than other free offerings. So there it is. Hitman VR is a port of one of the worst PC VR games ever made. You jump into a quick tutorial, and learning how to use the mechanics, I knew I'd be in for an interesting game. Then you can choose from the missions. You get shown a cutscene and briefly introduced to the world. You get given a high value target and you're supposed to be able to kill them in any way you want. This game's just complete garbage. You have to press buttons to do things like open doors, and even strangling someone just doesn't feel natural at all. Even reloading, you have to press a button and your hands move in this really clunky way. It was graphically glitching out the whole time as well. While I could see these missions being fun if they gave the player more freedom and less press a button to do this. Even in the later missions, the mechanics like climbing are just beyond a joke. But it's just an absolute nightmare of a game, and I can't ever recommend anyone playing it. I'm gonna put it in F tier. For me, BoneLab is just an absolute masterpiece. Playing all the other Quest games has just made me appreciate BoneLab that much more. It just simply has the best gun mechanics and physics of any Quest game I've ever played. It truly feels like you can do anything in this game. The campaign's a lot of fun, the sandbox mode is where it really shines, and the modding community will have you playing forever. The mods are even integrated into the game. They're just so easy to download when you sync them with your Mod.io account. There is a fair bit of clunk. I feel like the developers haven't really thought through the body IK. It just still gets absolutely stuck on everything you do. That said, it's one of my favorite VR games of all time, and it's going straight into the S tier. I've spent the most amount of time in BoneLab than probably any other VR game. Beat Saber is just another OG game that just completely took over the VR market when it first came out. It's a rhythm game that you've probably heard of where you just hit bars in a Guitar Hero style game. There's a single player, sandbox mode, and you can change the difficulty to suit your needs. This is a game I always show people when I'm introducing them to VR, and it's clear they've struck a winning formula. I will say it's not really my cup of tea, but I can't knock it. It's a perfect, fun, and satisfying game, and I'm gonna put it in A tier. Blade and Sorcery is a popular port of the PC game. There's a lot of clunk, but it's probably my favorite slash and hack Quest game. I think they nailed the sword combat, and the enemy AI is a lot of fun. The combat loop is just incredible, and I feel like this is what BoneLab's missing. The telekinesis and magic has just been implemented absolutely perfectly. I would just consider this to be a must-buy game, and it's going straight into A tier. I Am Security is the same as Titan's Clinic and that hairdresser game. You're a bouncer at a club, checking people out and seeing what they have on them, taking things, replacing things. You get the point. You can approve or deny them into the club. The things you take off them, you can sell at the market and then upgrade to other things. You can upgrade all your equipment, but it does get quite repetitive. I'm giving it a C tier because it's a great game, but I just don't ever see myself wanting to return to it. Waltz of the Wizards is a magic game where you can cast various spells and interact with the world to slowly upgrade more areas. It initially starts with just 3 ingredients making a whole bunch of spells. The level of interaction with the world was so surprising, almost everything has some unique Easter egg to it. Once you unlock enough spells, you can then go to the next room, and you unlock some pretty cool things like voice commands, and even more spells and areas to play with. I found the world just so dynamic and interactable. They've also added in an AR mode to play around with. There are puzzles and challenges littered all over the map. For example, I just played this song and then I could go into this shadow realm. It's quite incredible how many little Easter eggs there are, how many spells you can cast, and just how interactable the world was. This one's just going straight into A tier. It's just a lot of polished fun, and it's very satisfying playing with the world. I Am a Cat is exactly what it sounds like. You play as a cat with 2 paws, and you're in this house and you have to interact with everything. You have to complete a range of challenges to get new areas and unlock new things. The world's quite interactable. You can cook toast, food, get water. The whole world just feels alive. I can see why it's so popular. It's quite comical just interacting with the world with cat paws. I probably wouldn't see myself returning to it though. And for that reason, I'm gonna have to put it in C tier. I'm gonna put Hitman in the trash spot. I just couldn't stand it. It's a total mess. For the crown spot, I'm gonna give it to BoneLab. In terms of replayability, it's just an incredible game. Thanks so much for watching the video. Let me know what you agree with and disagree with in the comments below. I hope this helps you decide what sort of games are worth playing and what games you might skip. Do you agree with my rankings? I sense a lot of you won't. I'll leave a link below so you can vote on your own list and you can compare what everyone else thinks. I'll respond to as many comments as I can, and I'll see you guys next time.